Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Rebecca Keppel. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about a product that often gets overlooked, embossing folders. Embossing folders have been around for a while, but thanks to Sunny Studios, they've gotten a new updated feel. Embossing folders are great for adding dimension and interest to the backgrounds of your cards. But there's lots of ways that you can make them stand out or really pop. So today I'm sharing 6 different ways to use embossing folders and make them really shine. Be sure to stick around to the end of the video to see some unexpected mediums that really bring embossing folders to life. One thing I really like about the Sunny Studio embossing folders is that they are 6x6, so you can easily cover an entire card front with an uninterrupted pattern. One way to make that pattern shine is to ink blend on top. For this first ink blending technique, I am going to use Sunny Studios Sunburst embossing folder, and I love how the rays of the sun are raised from the embossing folder. And you can see that it is a 6x6 design here, so I cut it out of white cardstock and then embossed it in my Gemini Junior. I am using Distress Oxide inks to ink blend a rainbow around the center of the card. This center I will cover up with a sentiment, so I'm not so worried about getting it perfect or getting a little bit of ink on that center of the card. I just want to have a nice rainbow. And I do go over some of the colors again to make sure that they blend together where they cross other colors and that there are no harsh lines. Next, I am going to use the spritzer, the distress sprayer, to spritz some just plain water on that Distress Oxide ink, and then it will do its work and oxidize, and I will just pick up the water with a dry paper towel, and then you get those nice artistic looking spots, those white spots from the Distress Oxide ink. So next, I am going to work on the sentiment for this, and I did die cut a scallop circle, and I'm going to stamp the Sunny Studios, it says Best Wishes on it, and I will include all the stamp sets and dies and everything that I used in the YouTube description below. And I am stamping that with Gina K Designs Amalgam ink. I love this black ink. It is the Obsidian. Again, I'll link this all in the description below so you can check it out if you want. And I use my mini Misty to do that to get a good impression. Now I trimmed down that 6x6 to a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I'm just going to place that on a top folding white note card. I'm going to use a little bit of foam tape to pop up my sentiment there, and I'm just going to cut that foam tape with some non-stick scissors and then peel off the back protective layers and lay that on my card. I really love how the ink draws out the pattern of that sunburst and really makes it shine. If you don't have lots of colors of ink though, you can just use white pigment ink over colorful cardstock. I embossed the Sunny Studio Dapper Diamonds embossing pattern with that folder, and then I am just going to use another foam blender with just some white pigment ink. This is Hero Arts Unicorn White Pigment ink, and you can see that it really helps to accent the pattern that is raised there. So you could just use the embossing folder and create that impression, but look at how pretty the white ink looks when you just rub it lightly over that embossed pattern. To finish off this card, I stamped some Sunny Studios Cheerful Daisies and the Best Wishes sentiment from Pink Peonies. I have the sentiment on some vellum, and then I am just going to layer up those Cheerful Daisies from that stamp set, which is a layering stamp set. I'm going to use some tape runner to adhere some of them down and some foam adhesive to pop some of them up. Again, I cut down that background from 6x6 to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I just love the effect of that white pigment ink over the blue cardstock. A simple way to make the pattern of embossing folders stand out is to use Thermoweb's Glitter Glitz Gels on top. Basically, you're turning your background into glitter embossed cardstock without spending lots of extra money on that. For this technique, I started out by embossing a 6x6 piece of white cardstock with the Sunny Studios Quilted Hearts embossing folder. Now I am spraying a bit of the Thermoweb Pixie Spray on the back of that cardstock just to keep it on the Waffle Flower Water Media mat. I am going to be using some Arena K Designs for Thermoweb Electropop Neon Glitter Glitz Gel. Look at that color. It is amazing, right? I just absolutely love that pink. It is incredible. I'm going to use a palette knife to scoop some of it out, and then I'm going to put it on the flat edge of the Thermoweb Stencil Pal. The Stencil Pal is great because it is wide enough and flexible enough to get the glitter glitz gel across the entire 6x6 piece of paper without having to see harsh lines in between, where if you used a palette knife you would. I'm going to add a little bit more because I really want to cover up most of the white. I just want those little hearts and dots to show through, and the rest of it is going to look like glitter cardstock. This is so easy to do, and you get so much in a jar that it is way cheaper than buying glitter cardstock. So I'm going to set this aside to dry. It does need to dry for definitely at least an hour. I like to just leave mine overnight. So I set them up on a shelf, leave it overnight, and then I come back to it the next day. I am also using some Electropop Neon ink from Arena K Designs for Thermoweb, and I am going to stamp the Best Wishes sentiment once again on a scalloped circle. I'm going to use some Thermoweb Memory Runner XL. That's my favorite tape runner, and I am going to adhere the glitter glitz gel embossed panel that we created down to a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch piece of top folding white cardstock. And I cut down the glitter glitz a little bit slimmer than 4 1/4 so that you could see a little bit of that white popping out on the side. I thought with the little bits of white hearts and dots and then the white scallop center for the sentiment, that those little strips of white on the side just really pull the card together. Once again, I am going to use some foam tape to pop up that sentiment circle, just peel off those top protective layers and lay this down. This was super, super easy, and look at that. It is just like such a huge impact because of the color and the shine of the glitter glitz gel showing off that really adorable pattern of the embossing folder. If you do heat embossing in your card making, you probably already have these products in your stash. Why not use them on your embossed background to make them shine? Let me show you how easy this is. For this technique, I embossed the Sunny Studio Moroccan circles onto a 6x6 piece of white cardstock. I am going to use some anti-static powder tool on this whole panel, just so that the Versamark only sticks to the raised areas there. Okay, now I am going to wipe the Versamark ink pad across the entire 6x6 embossed piece of paper, and you just have to hold an edge and then go in the other direction. Now I'm pouring some embossing powder on top. This is a Gina K Designs embossing powder that's rose gold, I believe. And you just pour it over the whole panel. And I know it looks like you're using a ton of embossing powder, but it's not that bad. And then I'm going to heat set this to melt that embossing powder, and you can see the shine coming through. This did take a little bit longer than you would if you were just embossing a sentiment, say. So be patient, let your heat tool really heat up, but then look at that shine and the texture. I just absolutely love this, and it was super, super easy to do. To finish off this card, I heat embossed in gold this time the Best Wishes from the Pink Peonies stamp set on a piece of vellum, and I'm going to have it on the right-hand edge there, so I have the piece long enough that I can fold the edge underneath the card panel, and that's going to really keep it in place so that I can hide my adhesive. The other way that I hide adhesive is by tucking it right underneath some die cut flowers that I Copic colored so that you can't see the adhesive there either. I'm going to put this whole thing on a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch piece of gray cardstock. Love the way that heat embossing looks against the neutral of the gray. And then I'm just going to adhere that whole card panel onto a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch top folding note card. And that is it. Super easy. If you're not that into glitter, but you like backgrounds with a lot of shine, you might want to try Thermoweb's metallix gel over your embossed background. Let me show you how easy it is to apply. For this technique, I used the Sunny Studios wood grain embossing folder, and I absolutely love this background. I think this would be so versatile, be great for masculine cards, for lots of different things. For the metallix gel, I am going to use the pixie spray again just to keep my cardstock in place. Most cardstock does not move around very much on the waffle flower water media mat as it is, but I really want to make sure it's not going to skip around while I am applying my metallix gel. Okay, so this is the metallix gel, and the color that I'm using today is called Champagne Mist. And I am again going to scoop it out with the palette knife and then apply it to the flat edge of the stencil pal. And I'm going to go in the direction of the wood grain for this one. So that's kind of definitely something that I try to do in general, is just go in the direction of the pattern. It makes it a little bit easier. You're not fighting with it, and you can go over it a couple of times depending on how thick you want it and how much you want to cover up. I like some of that white showing through because it makes the metallics even more special looking, I think. And look at that shine. Again, I am just going to set this aside until it dries. And once it did, I did cut it down to a little bit smaller. I think it was 4 by 5 1/4, so that I could place this on some gold cardstock from Gina K Designs. So I'm using a tape runner and I'm going to adhere that down. And again, that metallix gel, it doesn't take that long to dry depending on how thick you apply it. So if you're going to really go to town there and apply it very thick, you're going to want to wait overnight. And now I am using that vellum little trick there where you can fold it over the edge of the card so that you can hide your adhesive behind the folds behind the card panel there. I love that. I think it's a great little tip, and it is just an easy way to get vellum adhered down to your card panel without showing a bunch of yucky adhesive behind your vellum there. Once that's done, I finish off the rest of the card with some of those cheerful daisies. I did use some more yellows and oranges to kind of go with that metallics. And of course, I am putting some flat down to the card with tape runner and popping some up. That is, again, when I'm layering things like that, just one of my favorite techniques to do. If you're using embossing folders because you don't want to get messy and inky and mixed media, then maybe try embossing different types of papers or mediums. You can create an amazing embossed window by using acetate sheets in your embossing folders. Let's take a look. For this technique, I used Studio Katya's clear acetate sheets. Those are 6 by 6, and I used the Sunny Studios Dapper Diamonds embossing folder. I did just want to show you real fast how I did some of the layered stamping. I used, again, the Cheerful Daisies stamp set from Sunny Studios, and I like to do my layered stamping with Distress Oxide ink. I know a lot of people don't really like to stamp with Distress Oxides. I really do. I think they come out very creamy and beautiful looking, and I love the bright colors. Now I cut a window into a top folding note card. I just cut a rectangle out of the front of the card. So the back of the card is going to stay white, and then I trimmed down my acetate embossed piece there, and I'm going to glue it right on top of that cut out piece there. So I'm just using some tape runner around the piece of cardstock, and I'm going to adhere down that embossed window. And I love the way that looks, but I want to really make it much more special. So I am going to cover it up with a couple of pieces of colorful cardstock so that you can't really tell that I just cut the card front there. So I created a frame with some 2 different sizes of rectangle dies, and I actually did this twice. So I created 2 different frames, a pink frame and then a blue frame, and I'm just going to use that tape runner. I can get it to run just along that thin piece of cardstock there. This way I can layer those on top of each other, and that really makes that window look even more special. Once the frames are done, then I can adhere down those daisies that we stamped and the leaves as well. Again, some will be flat to the card and some will be popped up on dimensional adhesive. Last thing to do is stamp the sentiment. I did stamp that little hello from the Cheerful Daisies stamp set and have it on a little piece of cardstock there that matches that pink frame. And then I'm going to adhere that right underneath the blue frame to stick out in that window there. And I just love the way that that looks hanging out of the window. If you like creating card backgrounds with lots of texture, then use your embossing folders over flock sheets. It's a super simple technique with a really wow result. For this last technique, I am using the Sunny Studio Moroccan circles once again, and look at how beautifully it embosses on the ThermaWeb Decofoil flock transfer sheets. They do have this light paper on the back, and so the flock really stays in place when you emboss it. I trimmed mine down to about 4 by 5 1/4, and then I'm just using some tape runner to adhere it to a coordinating piece of cardstock. I am once again going to heat emboss the sentiment with some Versamark ink after I treated that vellum with some anti-static powder tool. I'm going to just stamp that in my mini Misty and then heat emboss it with some white embossing powder. This, I think, just the white embossing powder on vellum really pops and looks really nice on the flock background. I'm just going to heat set that to melt the embossing powder, and then I cut it down to a rectangle, and I am just hiding my adhesive behind the script letters. So I know I like to usually fold it behind the card, but for this one, you really can't see it. It's just amazing because of all the beautiful font of the best wishes. You can really hide some tape runner back there. So I did stamp and Copic color some of the pink peonies from that stamp set and some of the leaves as well. So I am just going to create a little cluster right above our best wishes vellum sentiment. And I absolutely love the way all of these different textures look with that embossed flock in the background. It's so pretty, and in real life it is just absolutely touchable. I hope you either pull out the embossing folders you have in your stash or check out the ones from Sunny Studios. All the products I use are linked in the description below. This video is part of my Support Small Card Making Businesses series, so be sure to check out that playlist down in the YouTube description below. If you like videos that show how to use one product lots of different ways, check this one out here. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can be notified whenever my new videos are available. As always, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you again soon.